I'm Bob Savikinus. Welcome to our program in a nutshell. Today again we have a very special guest with us, Uta Dreyer. Uta is, as you could guess with the name, she is from Germany. She immigrated here to the United States in 1960, and she has spent approximately 60 years living here in the United States in Scranton. She brought some of her wonderful artifacts with us to talk a little bit about a German Christmas, and we're going to learn a little bit about her time in Germany, her arrival here in the United States, and what it's been like living here in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Uta, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for having my little friends here from Erzgebirge, from my childhood. Everyone is like a piece of family to me. And I am so happy that Historical Society is taking it to heart too, and has a collection of the things that I donated after a show we had a couple years ago, and that they are safe and preserved and telling a fascinating story of an area which had much in common, I think, with our area here in Scranton, with mining having gone sour. And the people of my home area who make all these beautiful things, toys, fell on such hard times when the silver mining went out, and so they were starving and had really hard times. And these little things are known all over the world and loved all over the world.
Let's talk a little bit about Germany itself. So you said you were born in
Erzgebirge. And you all should learn that name. It's not only that these things are made there, but it's almost like a sign of quality. If someone is made in Erzgebirge, it's good. It's going to hold up. It's going to, many of these things are very delicate. Of course, they have to be treated well. You can throw them around and so, but with good care, they'll last for many generations.
We always hear about good German quality and good German products. So, where were you born? In the East German section of Germany?
Right, in that very Erzgebirge. Okay. I moved right from Erzgebirge to Illinois.
Okay, and why did you end up in Illinois?
America. I wanted to get out of East Germany very, very much. I was very unhappy. I went to church, and the communistic regime didn't like that. And to educate people who go to church, to educate people going to church, is that if you are dumb enough to believe that church crap, we are not going to spend time on you to educate you. And so many of us got thrown out of school. And my father happened to be a doctor. And when all the doctors' children too, or many doctor children, were thrown out of school, many doctors left East Germany because they wanted opportunity for their kids. Mm-hmm. Now, other pastors' kids, and so of course they had to stay because their fathers were obligated to the congregations, etc. So they were on their own, but I somehow wanted to get out and out and out.
And that was almost 60 years ago or so?
Not almost, on the day.
On the day?
It was leap year day, 1960, 29th of February, that I got off the boat in New York. And my family from Illinois welcomed me with a bouquet of roses. Now imagine that. And then they were going to fly me, or they fly me over to America, and I said, no, I want to have a boat. Could I please come by boat? And now to fly on to Chicago, and I said, please let me ride the train. They let me do both of these things. I'm forever grateful. And when I got there, as actually housemaid I said, what is my duties? Well, you can help in the house a little bit, but mainly you should teach the grandkids and the neighborhood kids German. And I said, I don't even know English. And they said, just the better. The less English you know, the more German the kids learn. And the kids did. And on the end of my year, a contracted year, I put on a little show for the local women's club with little dances and little skits and little conversations. And they learned a lot of German, really. And now, I'm sure they all grew up to be in wonderful professions and teaching at universities, and so they were very, very bright kids.
Now, in all these 60 years that you've been out of Germany, have you made trips to return back to your homeland?
Many, many times, as often as I could, especially as long as East Germany was in existence. It was a very, very drab, boring existence in East Germany. They were like a colony of the Soviet Union, and there were forever shortages of everything. And I went there with a big suitcase full of all wonderful goodies. And on the way back, I tried to fill them up with things like that. And they are full of, they are so simple and so heartwarming.
So you mentioned earlier that we're here at the Lackawanna Historical Society, and I remember attending a party here probably a few years back at the holiday season, the Christmas season, and I know a lot of your artifacts, your German artifacts were on display along with a lot of the traditional German food and everything. Would you care to tell us a little bit about some of the different artifacts, Christmas decorations from Germany?
Yes. Well, here we talked about, the nutshell.
In a nutshell, the name of our program.
And here, Bob, if you could show this, there is a church inside of this nutshell. You can pick it up and show it to the camera.
This is the one that you're referring to.
That is the famous Frauenkirche in Dresden, which was bombed very badly, and just one or two walls left standing. And after the wall came down, the people of East Germany and the world really decided that it should be rebuilt. And they used as many of the blackened fire bricks and stones, was not bricks, stones, and took new materials, but you can see that it, on the outside, not here, the regular structure, that it looks like a checkerboard. Mm-hmm. By computer, I think they could figure out which stone had been where and rebuild it that way. And in celebration of that, there were many things done, including this. This is a very close replica to the church itself, in a nutshell. Now, Erzgebirge really specializes too in miniatures.
Okay. And what would we call these?
They are called pyramids.
Okay.
And pyramid, I think they have a wide base and then a small top.
I've seen various sizes of them.
Many sizes. Yes. Now, you know, they have Christmas markets.
Yes.
Even springing up in this country. Chicago, San Francisco, now even Philadelphia has one, so many more. And they have gigantic ones.
I just attended down in Bethlehem. They do the Christkindl market.
Oh, yeah.
And I know I've seen like a lot of these on display down there and everything. So it's wonderful to have part of your collection here in Scranton.
Yeah, thank you. And the main thing is that the figures go around a central axis. So
basically, I believe if you light the candles, it creates like a wind, like a breeze or surge, and it causes us to spin.
Right.
In fact, there was a famous scene in a movie called Christmas Vacation with the character by the name of Cousin Eddie from Chevy Chase, in which he kind of destroyed one of these. It was American culture with a rather humorous take on the German artifacts.
Yeah. So of course, Mary should be in the middle, and the guys should walk around her.
Do you have any idea how much time it would take for someone to handcraft one of these? Because I assume that they're handcrafted in Germany.
Yes, yes. Now, these are not, I mean, they're all handcrafted, but they're not family heirlooms.
Right.
If they're family heirlooms, it might be several generations. They build and build on it some more. And some are very elaborate, and some are big.
Now, some of the other fellows,
Yeah.
I would just call them, I believe they're called smokers.
Right. Yes, smokers.
And could you
Of
tell us a
course,
little bit about the smokers?
Everybody knows the Nutcracker. I don't have to explain it to smokers. Do you remember what the wise men brought to the Christ child?
Yes, they brought incense.
Yeah. And here, this is Erzgebirge, incense. And it comes in little,
And that's what's used in the smokers.
yes, in the smokers. And the smoker has a hollow body. And you light the incense and put it on here and put the hollow body on top. And the hollow body fills with the smoke. And eventually the smoke, very nice smelling, calming smoke comes out the mouth.
So
That-
it's
that
almost
was-
interactive. It's something that you're watching and it's doing something at the same
Yeah,
time.
and then in those days, of course, everybody smoked, and smoking wasn't the bad thing that it is now. And here, this guy, there was in my childhood, I still see him, on my way from my house to the main street, village street, was a man, not with that hat, but otherwise he looked just like that, and he had that kind of a pipe, and he had a tiny little window, and he was an old man, so he had this arm out the window, and in that arm had a pipe, and that big beard also. I don't know if he hung out the window, but we knew he had a big beard. And his name was Fritz Orges, and in my family, this character is called the Orges Fritz.
Based on your life experiences.
Yeah. So I was thrilled to see him each time. And but the other things is miniatures, which really, as compared to the delicate things, this is really a child's toy, kind of indestructible.
Based almost on like the villages in Germany and the winter type scenes with the evergreen trees and everything.
Until they have a war and then everything that. But I'm very proud of Germany. After all the destruction of World War I, World War II, they've learned their lesson. There has not been a war in 70-some years.
Let's get back to Scranton a little bit.
Yeah.
So how did you arrive, or how did you get from Illinois to Scranton? Let's talk a little bit more about your life.
Yeah, okay.
How did you end up in Scranton, Pennsylvania?
Yeah, it's a longer story. When I came, I was just so happy to be free, and I cannot really explain that liberation. Just personal. For me, thanks to that generous family in Illinois.
Yes.
And I saw all the problems in marriages and so on, that I'm never going to get married. And then came the right guy. I forgot all about it. However, that nice guy was all the way in Seattle.
Okay, so you went from Illinois to Seattle now.
No, I was in Pennsylvania. In between Reading, I call my American hometown, and I quit. I'm a physical therapist by training, East German trained, which the American colleagues didn't like in the beginning, but I'm the first foreign trained physical therapist ever licensed in Pennsylvania. I'm very proud of that. Many others have come and tried, but they didn't get through because they had families and kids and so on. For me, it was a difference between being a factory worker or being a professional. So I fought and finally was the first one to get through and passed my tests and so on. I had to go to several states. One time, nobody wanted to test me. And Alaska did. I thought, well, that's worth it. Go see Alaska and take my test and come back American physical therapist. And I got, as I was getting ready for the trip, I got an express mail before internet and all of that. They're sorry, you have to be a citizen to take our test. Okay. So I couldn't take that test. Finally, they needed physical therapists more than anyone else in Virginia. And they said, okay, come and take the test. I had no trouble passing it. And then it was North Carolina next door, and they said, we'll give you reciprocity, maybe you'll work for us. And what did I do instead? I didn't want to leave Pennsylvania. I said, why should I go elsewhere? But I followed my then-to-be husband to Seattle and got married, both of us very reluctantly. We didn't think we was a marrying type. Had a wonderful marriage, started it out with a big, big trip. He showed me his country. We zigzagged with our little VW bus, this way and that way, this country. And then I showed him Europe. And it was high employment then in the States. And wherever we wanted to stay, we stayed a while. Okay. He was an engineer, no trouble finding work. And after a couple months or so, we found an excuse that we had to move on, and moved on and went to Europe, where we did not work. We visited my family and his immigrant family.
And where was he from?
Hungarian Austrian Empire.
Okay. So
which
he was
then
almost
turned
German,
into Yugoslavia and Czechoslovakia, and now it's Serbia and Slovakia, and yeah. And we visited wonderful, very, very poor people, but full of heart, and so thrilled to see the American relatives had remembered them and come to see them. They were so poor and so all heart. And when we arrived late one night, they had a little pig, and they showed us a little pig, and the next day morning, Michael woke up, looked out the window, it's a poor little pig hanging on its hind leg. And then the whole village celebrated with us, and it was a wonderful, wonderful time.
It sounds like they were greeting two very successful professional people coming back to the neighborhood, to the village.
And then we counted our money, and it was all gone. Even so, it was, exchange rate was $1 to 4 German marks. Unheard of nowadays, unbelievable really, but it was. And in those East European countries even more, 1 to 16 and something. We were really the ugly Americans, which we tried not to be, but...
So when was the last time you were back to Germany?
I was back, I think in 88.
88, so it's been quite a few years since you've been back. Yeah. How has the country changed since when you left up until 1988?
I don't really know. I haven't seen it.
No, what I meant was when you left originally, 60 years ago, up until 1988, it was under the communist regime and everything. So becoming westernized. Tremendously. And just very recently, I got a newspaper from Erzgebirge on various, administrative changes they had made. So beautiful, so well organized, and so still full of that love of that country, which produces these simple little but heartwarming things around the world. And even in this professional, basically very boring kind of thing, financial statements and the bus routes and the trains and it's boring, but always came through our darling Erzgebirge, and that has to be well served, and the people have to be well served, and so for some reason it seems to be
a very special area, and I've been trying to figure that out for the longest time. I do not know, except it is why does Scranton have heart and soul? We don't know either. I think people who suffered a lot, they develop these qualities.
What are some of your things that you enjoy doing in Scranton since you've lived here?
Coming here.
To the Historical Society? Okay.
And from the day I came, I was involved in civil rights issues.
Okay.
And I still am.
And you found Scranton to be a progressive city?
To some degree.
To some degree, okay.
And you can find progressive people wherever you go. And I seek them out. And my husband was of that same ilk. And
so you've gotten involved in many...
I got involved mainly through the Quakers, the peace-loving,
okay.
friendly Quakers, a friendly community of the Quakers, and the resulting philosophy of life, and other organizations of the sort. So of course I'm all for, with the Black Lives Matter, it bothered me from the very beginning that there was such discrepancy. I wasn't even a citizen yet when I went down south with voter registration with the Quakers.
So you've always been involved in trying to keep
always involved, and didn't even consider that I jeopardized my own citizenship status.
By being an activist.
Yeah. So
let's talk a little bit about German Christmas traditions.
Tell
us a little bit about what are the traditions, the German traditions?
But there are two sets of traditions. The one is regular German, which is like here, and the other is the Erzgebirge tradition.
Okay, please tell us a little bit about
there
both.
There is big pyramids like this, like that grandfather clock in the corner there, in almost every house in my youth. Now not anymore, I think, but unless they served it, so they saved it from grandpa. And it's dismantled every February 2nd. By February 2nd, it has to be all cleared off. That is Groundhog Day. It's Groundhog Day.
Okay,
yeah,
so it's the traditions.
A tradition there. The last vestige of Christmas has to be packed away for the year. And it starts the 1st of Advent, when you start unpack everything, and all the grandfathers, they get into restoring the toys and repainting and what all needs to be done. And they have many special songs, for example, to go into the attic and get one of these little guys. I say, hey, good morning, and no, good morning, Merry Christmas to you, and come on, now it's your time, and you got to smoke again, and so on. A very, very personal relationship to those little wooden guys.
How about the foods? The German foods, because I know there's been a major trend at some of the grocery stores, like Aldi's in particular is a grocery store. I know they sell a lot of the German foods, the Stollens and everything. Please, would you care to elaborate?
Very important. Oh my goodness, the Stollen. The Stollen needed special ingredients, which of course were not available in the stores in East Germany. And so it was very, very important that you have relatives in the West who would send you what they, almonds and raisins and maybe chocolate type stuff or baking supplies that you couldn't get. And there was a joke in East Germany, two women meet each other and, how are you doing? And the questioned answers in a rhyme. She says, keine Verwandten. Nobody in the store where she had some connections, and nobody in the West who sends me package. no relatives in America, and you ask me how I am. You know, that is very sad and but very true joke from East Germany.
So it was the connections to the western part of the Western world, the United States, and Western
the
Europe.
Western and West Germany was very accommodating. For example, that if you send packages to East Germany with these baking ingredients, you could take it off your income tax.
Interesting.
Stuff like that.
So what are some of the other traditional German foods that would be popular or would be important part of the holiday celebration? The Stollen we mentioned.
The Stollen started in Dresden, which is where that church is, was rebuilt, the Walnut Church.
Right.
And, pork and sauerkraut.
Pork and sauerkraut. That's closer to New Year's. Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
gingerbread cookies and things.
Yeah.
I know that they seem to be very popular as well. It seems like there's a big resurgence in, I guess, ethnic traditions of people wanting the German foods.
Glühwein, hot wine, spices, spiced wine.
Okay. What are some of the things that you miss of the German traditions that don't exist or that you don't see happening too much?
Singing.
The singing part of it.
Singing. And you do know some singing here in your Christmas
Silent Night, I
celebrations.
believe that was a German song that was...
Oh, very much so. Very much. With a big story with it, with a mouse having damaged the organ. That's why the priest had to take the guitar to accompany the, and so on.
So the
Music, very, very. Leipzig, which is like next to Dresden, is a Bach city. He wasn't born there, but he was there many years, and they honor his music and so on.
So the celebration of Christmas itself, again, we have St. Nicholas, I believe, is a part of the German tradition as well.
Yeah.
Would you any stories on that you would like to share with us about St. Nicholas and that tradition?
Well, I have Scranton stories.
Okay.
That much. When I first came, they had Eberhard Museum had an exhibit of ethnic Christmas trees. Can you tell me where the Christmas tree originated?
Germany?
Well, that's what so many people say. But there was, I don't know how many Christmas trees, there was no German Christmas tree. Okay. Because it was those bad Germans. How could anything nice like a Christmas tree could have originated among those bad people who make all these wars? Meanwhile, I had gotten to know some war brides who had come maybe 10 years before me, ships full of GI brides, and had a hard time, really, because they too came here. It wasn't public knowledge much, but Johnny comes home with that enemy relative of new enemy or relative of ours, and so the Germans, these German women, was very lonely, and one German woman, was not a war bride or anything, had been here with her family for a long time, Lucille Urban. She got all the names she could and invited all of us into her spacious basement, made a big, wonderful dinner, and fed all of us and got us very comfortable. And then, after we were sitting trying to digest, she said, I'll tell you the truth why I have you here. Eberhard Museum has an exhibit of Christmas trees, and there is no Christmas tree. Who has extra ornaments? Who wants to make some ornaments? Who, whatever, me. And from then on, we had German Christmases various places. First, at the Eberhard Museum, then they needed the space and dismantled their, what do you call that?
Stage.
Okay. Had dismantled their stage and the auditorium. So we had to go somewhere else. So St. John's Lutheran church took us over. And had wonderful celebrations there, with china and beautiful food and so. That went several years. And then Pastor Molzahn left, and
We've always had...
Anthracite Museum took over.
Yes.
And then we had very, very lovely celebrations at the Anthracite Museum. And there were many of us putting on the shows and so on, and less, and less, and less, and less. And finally, another old woman and I were alone on the stage, and we said, well, we can't do it anymore. And then also, the director, wonderful man, I forget his name now.
Chester?
Chester left.
Yes, Chester Kalesa, former director at the
Chester,
Anthracite. Yes.
he left.
Our area here in northeastern Pennsylvania, I know, has
Yeah.
always had a history of celebrating its heritage.
Yeah,
Do you remember Rocky Glen Park? That was down in the music
A
area?
little bit.
Because they used to have
bit.
ethnic festivals, and I remember they did German festival, Bavarian festivals, they call them, and everything.
No, I do
So it's
not know what they are.
celebrating our heritage of the different ethnic groups and everything. And it seems you've done a wonderful job through all these years of keeping the German tradition alive, whether it was
Yeah.
at the Anthracite Museum, at the Lackawanna Historical Site, at the Everhart Museum.
Yeah.
So you've almost been an ambassador from Germany to promote
Yes,
German
yes,
culture throughout our community.
Yeah, I think that was part of my job.
Another professional job, an ambassador, a cultural ambassador, if we want to call it that.
Yeah, uh-huh.
So the Nutcracker itself, is that also from Germany, or the history of that, do you know?
It's not from the town where all these little things come from. It's from a neighboring town, and they're more a Nutcracker town, and I don't know why. But of course, there is a Nutcracker story, and it is a German story with some kind of an uncle. He had that gift of a Nutcracker for the little girl, and then a German, E.T.R. Hoffmann, wrote the story, and Tchaikovsky made the music to it, and so it's a Nutcracker, all of that we have every Christmas time.
Uda, I just want to tell you thank you so much for what you've done here in Scranton, for making us richer in the German culture and heritage, and spending time with us to give us those traditions, and sharing your wonderful artifacts of German history and culture. And thank you so much for what you've done here in Scranton, Pennsylvania. I'm Bob Savikinus. It's in a nutshell. Thank you.